She will punish your enemies and protect your loved ones. She will give you justice, love, money, and revenge. All you have to do is ask. Men who fear no one tremble before her. She's known by many names. The Skinny Lady, Niña Blanca, the Holy Death, Santa Muerte. The Catholic Church calls it Satanism, blasphemy, a cult for heretics and criminals. The Vatican condemns her. It denies her very existence. But she is worshipped by millions of people who live in the margins. I'm in Mexico City to experience what has become a brand new religion, the devotion of Santa Muerte.
Reza Aslan is an author and scholar.
Reza Aslan is a scholar of religions.
Best-selling author Reza Aslan. As a scholar, as a Muslim, as an American, what is your reaction?
I've been studying the world's religions for 20 years, and now I'm gonna live them. Mexico is one of the most Catholic countries in the world. In terms of population, it's second only to Brazil. More than 80% of Mexicans identify as Catholic. That's nearly 100 million people. And as with most Catholic countries, Mexican Catholicism is predicated heavily on the saints. While no one's clear on the exact number, currently there are more than 10,000 saints that the Catholic Church venerates. And each saint has a very specific purpose. Embarking on a long journey? Pray to Saint Christopher, the patron saint of travelers. Caught your husband on Ashley Madison? Pray to Saint Rita, the patron saint of marital problems. Scheduled a root canal? Pray to Saint Apollonia, the patron saint of dentistry. There's even a saint for biracial children, Saint Martin de Porreo, who for some awkward reason is usually depicted with a broom. But now there's a new saint in town, an unofficial saint. For many who worship her, it's an extension of their Catholicism. Yet the Catholic Church aggressively disavows her. Her name is Santa Muerte, Saint Death.
When you ask people where the Santa Muerte religion came from, you'll get half a dozen different answers. Anthropologists, scholars will say that it's part of a Mexican folk religion, that you can probably trace it to the 1980s or the 1990s. But when you ask devotees, worshipers, where the cult of Santa Muerte come from, they'll point you to this. This is Mictlantecuhtli, the ancient Aztec god of the dead, the lord of Mictlan. Mictlan is the lowest part of the underworld. Very important Aztec god. You can see with the skull imagery, very much like Santa Muerte. It's focused on concepts of death and the dying. In fact, there's evidence that there was some form of sacrifice, definitely some form of cannibalism that took place with his cult. And this is partly where some of the bad publicity with Santa Muerte comes from. This is the Pieta, the deceased Christ sprawled on the lap of the Virgin Mary. You've seen this in churches throughout the world, but here, it's not the Virgin Mary who's supporting Christ. It's Santa Muerte.
Catholic iconography, Aztec iconography coming together and creating something completely new. My friend Professor Laura Rausch is an anthropologist who's been studying Santa Muerte for more than 20 years.
In 1991, I got my first Santa Muerte image, and I loved her.
Back then, devotion to Santa Muerte was a very private thing,
It was a secret almost.
What was the deal?
I think that there was a sense that maybe this is not quite okay, and maybe this has to do with...
Satanism?
No, not Satanism. You didn't hear Satanism at the beginning. What you did hear was it was connected to traditional healers, you know, little old ladies with a lot of herbs and things. And, you know, those women were very good at curing the physical ailments and the spiritual ailments at the same time. And the Santa Muerte was usually an element that could be drawn on. But it was something that you couldn't confess to the priest or in school, and mainly not to your medical doctor. Right. That you were also going to those healers. And it passes from the little old ladies to young men in trouble.
Right.
So that brings us to jails. For a long time in Mexico City prisons, you had a Virgin of Guadalupe tattooed on your back because no one will shank the Virgin of Guadalupe.
Really?
Too much respect. But later on, somehow she lost her credibility. It didn't provide enough safety. Maybe because people stopped taking the churches seriously around the same time in the 80s and the 90s. So Santa Muerte becomes much more of a protector, appealing to a new population of young men who have got some kind of trouble in life.
Right. Mexico is a country ravaged by crime and violence, much of it at the hands of drug cartels. But many believe that the corruption that allows these cartels to operate with near impunity reaches up to the highest levels of the police and the government. What's it like being a journalist in Mexico?
Since 2088 journalists have died.
88?
88.
That's amazing.
It's either the cartels against you or the government's against you.
Some of your sort of threats and pressure hasn't come from criminals or gangs, but from the state.
Yeah, you do get government politicians like calling up like newsrooms and asking, who's your source? What did they tell you? Where can we find them? It's kind of difficult.
Scary.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to work under that environment. You're in good terms with the government so long as you're not very critical.
The story that I think really changed everything for a lot of people was the story of the 43 students. I just looked over here.
Yeah, as that says over there, we're missing 43. It was a state. Alive, they took them. Alive, we want them back.
In 2014, 43 students from a rural teachers' college were on their way to an anti-government protest when their van was intercepted by the local police force. The police allegedly handed them over to a criminal cartel. None of the students were ever heard from again.
We now know that it was the entire government that knew what was going on that night in Iguala, and no one acted.
Hola. ¿Cómo están? Do you trust the police?
No.
Do you trust the government?
No. No at all.
Do you trust the state?
No.
Is there any authority that you feel you can trust anymore?
No.
Aquí el asunto es de que es muy claro que el narcotráfico y el Estado ya son solo uno.
The entire system is corrupt. Yeah. You know, when I hear that, it makes sense to me why Santa Muerte has been surging. I mean, if you can't trust the civil infrastructure, if you can't trust the people who are supposed to protect you, you need something to protect you.
When you have like all these conditions around and you just want things to get better, you turn to your saints. You turn to Santa Muerte, for example, which is a saint. You turn to the supernatural when you can't get real answers in the real world.
Yeah, nobody else is helping you.
Exactly.
There's an estimated 2 to 5 million devotees of Santa Muerte in Mexico. Initially embraced by criminals and narco-traffickers, it's now expanded to become one of the fastest-growing religions in the country. Enriqueta Vargas is the current owner and caretaker of the largest and most impressive shrine to Santa Muerte in all of Mexico. Vargas's son, Jonathan, was a devout follower of Santa Muerte and a community activist who was promoting the religion. He's the one who constructed the 70-foot statue of her in 2007, but he was killed before the shrine could be completed. No one was ever charged with the crime.
Yo soy devota de la Santa Muerte a raíz de la muerte de mi hijo.
How did he die?
Fue acribillado por aproximadamente 13 personas.
13 different people. That sounds like an execution.
Eso se especuló en los periódicos de que había sido el crimen organizado, narcotráfico. Fue cuando yo entré aquí al templo y le dije a la santa: si tú me entregas a los asesinos de mi hijo, yo voy a engrandecer tu culto, yo voy a enaltecer tu nombre.
Did you want revenge?
Sí. En los primeros días de diciembre se dio la justicia. El asesino, el autor intelectual, me enteré que lo habían matado.
For you, that was Santa Muerte saying that she was answering your prayer.
Sí, yo creo que con eso la Santa Muerte me dijo, yo cumplí, te toca a ti.
True to her word, Enriqueta Vargas has transformed her son's small shrine into a thriving community of Santa Muerte devotees. Her organization, Templo Santa Muerte Internacional, now has similar shrines all across Mexico, and even in the United States, where people come to petition her with prayers and offerings. As with most other saints, you can pray to Santa Muerte for very specific things. It all depends on what color dress she's wearing.
Tenemos a la Santa Roja para el amor, aquí la Santa Armonía y Trabajo. Verde es para la solución a problemas legales, para los que se encuentran en la cárcel, prisioneros, una prisión.
Sí, yo entiendo.
Dorada para que haya dinero. Y la negra es protección.
Protección.
Sí. Esta es mi santa favorita.
Enriqueta Vargas also ministers to prisoners. Today, she's offering Mass at Tizayuca Prison, a severely overcrowded jail near Mexico City. This facility was originally built to hold about 60 inmates, but it's currently home to more than 240. The prison is so broke that they can't even afford inmate uniforms. Everyone here is responsible for clothing themselves. To accommodate the prisoners, every nook and cranny is occupied. Here, everywhere I turn, I see Santa Muerte. So that right there is called the New Trinity. Santa Muerte in the middle. Next to her is St. Jude, patron saint of delinquents. On the other side of Santa Muerte, Malverde. Malverde is a late 19th century, early 20th century narco trafficker, a criminal. What do you say to people who say that Santa Muerte is just a criminal saint?
No es cierto, o sea, yo vivía con esa mala impresión, esa mala imagen, ¿no? Ya cuando vi que realmente no hay nada de eso y que se reza lo mismo que se reza en una misa católica, yo no veo nada malo. El día que yo creí en la Santa Muerte, en la primer misa que hizo la madrina Enriqueta Vargas, ella al poner sus manos en mi cabeza, yo no me explico por qué comencé a llorar. Y me dice, es que la Santa Muerte está dando esa tranquilidad y esa paz que en estos momentos tú necesitabas. Y yo realmente estoy muy agradecido con la madrina Enriqueta Vargas porque así como un sacerdote es un enlace de Cristo, ella ha sido un enlace de la Santa Muerte.
¿Cómo están?
¿Cómo están?
Bien, bien.
Bien, gracias.
Hola, chicos. ¿Se ha portado bien? Hola, mi hermoso. ¿Cómo están?
Once a month, Enriqueta Vargas visits the prison to bless devotees of Santa Muerte and lead them in a mass.
Hola. Que el hecho de estar aquí encerrados, yo sé que es difícil para ustedes, pero vamos a pedirle a nuestra Santísima Muerte que nos ayude. En el nombre de Dios Padre de mi Santísima Muerte. Amén. Te rogamos, Madre, recibas.
Te rogamos, Madre, recibas
Nuestras súplicas en este día.
nuestras súplicas en este día.
During the service, when we were praying for protection and for peace.
Santa Muerte.
Santa Muerte,
Por un día más de vida.
por un día más de vida.
I was surrounded by all these prisoners who have been here for God knows how long and who are really relying on Santa Muerte to get by every day.
Vamos a pedirle a nuestra Santísima Muerte les dé fuerza para continuar.
All I could pray for was thanks. I was just thanking Santa Muerte that I'm not here and that I have justice and that I have freedom and all the things that I take for granted.
¡Que viva la Santa Muerte!
Que viva la Santa Muerte.
¡Que viva la Santa Muerte!
Que viva la Santa Muerte.
This is one of the thousands of parish churches that dot the entire Mexican landscape. Devotion to Santa Muerte has been part of Mexican culture for more than 100 years. For the most part, the Catholic Church tolerated it. Parish priests understood that it was part of folk religion, part of the general sense of spirituality that makes Mexico so unique. Then, in the 1990s, the Mexican Cardinal Rivera, essentially declared a war against Santa Muerte, saying that it was a gateway to Satanism. But the negative attacks against Santa Muerte resulted in a public outcry, a backlash from her devotees. In trying to root out Santa Muerte devotion in Mexico, he may have crystallized it here forever. A lot of the Santa Muerte devotees that I speak to, they actually still think of themselves as Catholics. Do you think that you could still be a faithful Catholic and also pray to Santa Muerte?
No, a la Santa Muerte es un culto, como lo dijo el cardenal, el enemigo número uno de Cristo es la muerte. Eso es bíblico. Santa Muerte es una fe donde parece que vemos a Dios como una varita mágica y que te va a solucionar todo de la noche a la mañana. Para nosotros no es lo mágico, ¿verdad? Eso es lo que nos distingue a nosotros como cristianos, como católicos.
Right. And what about St. Jude? What would Catholics pray to St. Jude for?
San Judas muchas veces es el trabajo, la protección, porque muchas veces hay gente que está tristemente en malos pasos, en malos lugares. Pide que lo cuide.
For a lot of Santa Muerte devotees, that's what they pray to Santa Muerte for. It's okay to pray to those things for St. Jude, but not to Santa Muerte.
Sí, porque la Santa Muerte, como lo dijo el cardenal, es un culto satánico. Y si hay alguien que profese o tenga esa devoción a la muerte, que se convierte en una ofensa a Dios.
This is Tepito, one of the roughest neighborhoods in Mexico City. Most travel guides will steer you away from this place. Even Mexico City dwellers consider the neighborhood a no-go zone. 72 blocks of Latin America's biggest black market, a refuge for drug dealers, smugglers, and pickpockets.
Tepito has become the center of Santa Muerte devotion in Mexico City for a whole host of reasons, particularly this area here, which on Dia de los Muertos is going to be full of thousands of people walking along this route to this temple to Santa Muerte in this storefront. This small shrine is the heart of Santa Muerte devotion in Mexico. In contrast to that, just about 50 feet away, is this. This altar was put here by a couple of the neighboring parishes as a way of discouraging people from the worship of Santa Muerte right next door. You can see how big and grand this is compared to what is really a small Santa Muerte shrine. And of course, with these eyes staring at the devotees as they make their way down the street to Santa Muerte. I don't think it works.
The Santa Muerte shrine in Tepito is overseen by an elderly grandmother who's become the high priestess of Santa Muerte devotion, Doña Queta Romero.
Doña Queta, hola, me llamo Reza.
One of the most fascinating aspects of Santa Muerte devotion is that it's led almost wholly by women. This shouldn't come as a surprise, considering that this is a movement that began in the kitchens of traditional female healers. Doña Queta has become one of the most unlikely of religious crusaders. It all started when her son gave her a Santa Muerte statue that was too big for her tiny house, so she put it outside on the sidewalk. At the time, Santa Muerte devotion was a secret and private affair. People were amazed at Doña Queta's brazenly public act of devotion. They took their cue from her. They started bringing out their own Santa Muerte statues, displaying them publicly. They began flocking to Doña Queta's house in solidarity with her. Next thing you knew, this small house in the middle of a tough neighborhood became a kind of mecca for Santa Muerte devotees all across Mexico.
So many people come here from all over Mexico with their offerings, with their prayers, and I noticed that they all have something very specific that they're asking for, whether it's love or a job or protection. When you pray to Santa Muerte, is there something specific that you ask for?
No pido nada, todo me lo da ella. Salud, mis hijos, mi pareja, mi madre. Ella me lo pone todo aquí.
Yeah.
Yo no le pido nada. Ella sabe mis necesidades.
A lot of devotees of Santa Muerte don't see any conflict with the church, but I can't help but notice that the church thinks differently. They dismiss Santa Muerte. They say, oh, it's a narco-religion. It's a religion for criminals. When you hear that, what do you think? What's your response?
Si son narcos, si son rateros, si son prostitutas, en las iglesias no dejan entrar ya. Y aquí puede entrar la persona que quiera.
Do you really feel that Santa Muerte is reaching out specifically to those who have no other recourse, nobody else to turn to?
Yo te voy a decir una cosa. De los que son devotos es la fe. Por ejemplo, yo no tengo miedo a morirme. Yo no tengo miedo porque no sé qué es morirme. Yo no quiero vivir con miedos. Yo quiero vivir con dignidad al día. Y cuando me muera, pues ni modo, pero sin miedos.
So what's this neighborhood called?
This is Roma or La Condesa.
So this is like where the Mexican hipsters live.
This is definitely where the hipsters are.
Right. And even here, you'll find Santa Muerte devotees?
Yeah.
In an upscale Mexico City neighborhood, I'm meeting with Adrian Bauman, a Mexican-American journalist who's tracked the accelerated spread of Santa Muerte from Mexico all the way up to New York.
The thing you're seeing increasingly is what began as something for marginalized people is spreading to all sectors of society. Students, doctors, lawyers.
Everybody needs help. Check this out.
Even in this park, we're going to see a little shrine like this.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, I brought her a little bottle of tequila. You know, once you notice her, once you know what you're looking for, you're going to see it all over the place, including in the United States. There's several temples in Los Angeles, in Arizona, in New Mexico, and Texas. There's a very famous devotion to her in Queens, in New York. The devotion there centers around a trans woman whose name is Aurelie, and the connection's actually very direct in that there's a group of transsexual women here, and it's spread through this social network.
So is Santa Muerte devotion, is that like really taking off among the trans community in Mexico?
Yeah, it's definitely a big part of that. I mean, you have to think that this is a group of people that find themselves isolated, and, you know, a lot of trans people, if they're lower class, find themselves doing sex work. And so there's some overlap there because Santa Muerte is also extremely popular among prostitutes.
Yeah.
So if you have a group of people that are sort of doubly marginalized, I think Santa Muerte holds a lot of appeal. Santa Muerte accepts everybody.
Adrian is taking me to meet 3 transgendered prostitutes to see how Santa Muerte helps them cope with their dangerous existence on the streets of Mexico City.
Hola.
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 Me llamo Reza.
Soy.
And
Scarlett.
Scarlett.
Keira.
Keira, mucho gusto. I brought something for Santísima. Is it okay?
Sí.
Sí? Oh, gracias.
¿Dónde quieres?
Okay.
Pues, ¿cómo que nada más por nosotras? No.
My name Reza is it's like a Spanish word, you know. And when I came to America in 1979, 1980, there was a lot of anti-Iran feelings in the U.S. So I just told everybody I was Mexican. Yes, I learned Spanish. I actually belong to a breakdance group called El Norte. Why do you think so many trans people are attracted to Santa Muerte? What is it they get from her?
Cuando la muerte llegó a mí era como que yo me sentía protegida y no me sentía sola.
Te da, pues le ofrendo. Que le pides, no te cumple, pues la castigas.
So you reward her when she answers your prayer and then punish her when she doesn't.
Un día la castigué, la metí a la caja de la taza del baño porque no me cumplió.
Varias gente sí la castiga. Tengo una amiga que no le cumplía y la volteaba de cabeza y así la ponía hasta que le daba trabajo.
So, are you afraid when you go out to work? Is it dangerous for specifically for prostitutes? I mean, I imagine, yeah, very dangerous.
Yo no tengo mucho tiempo en esto y realmente el tiempo que llevo es así como que te tienes que armar de valor al salir todos los días a la calle. No sabes en qué coche vas a subir y qué puede pasar. Yo he tenido ya ciertas experiencias, igual con hombres con pistolas, con armas, con navajas, y pues yo pues también me tengo que defender, correr, gritar, hacer lo que sea para que me escuchen.
Do you use Santa Muerte to pray for protection?
Sí, siempre, todos los días, antes de salir. Siempre le pido protección, que me cuide y que me proteja.
Is that same for you?
¿Qué te puedo decir? Llevo 21 años con ella. Entonces, en mi futuro, pues está con ella, ¿no? Yo le dije, el día que tú vas a estar conmigo hasta que yo me muera. Y tú te vas a ir conmigo en mi tumba. Yo se lo prometí.
All this talk about death and a holy death and, you know, saint death, it kind of makes one think that there's like this obsession with death and dying in Santa Muerte.
I think it's kind of the opposite. Santa Muerte has to do with relieving your fear of death so you can live.
Laura has brought me to the Sonora market to guide me through the process of finding my own Santa Muerte icon.
I see Santa Muerte everywhere. Some Santa Muerte in there.
Doña Queta Romero is holding an enormous Santa Muerte ceremony tonight. And if I want to be a part of it, I need my own statue. Oh, look at this. So it's a little bit of everything. Santeria, even some voodoo dolls. Can we see that one?
La Santísima Muerte.
Okay, well, this is a good one.
Look at that.
You know, I see the owl a lot. Do you know what that
Wisdom.
represents? Oh, yes. And she's got some money, so that's good. Okay, well, let me see if she's speaking to me.
Well, I don't think she's not going to speak to you because she's not activated yet.
She's not activated. She's just a statue.
She needs to be sort of purified, basically.
Can you activate it? I'd love that.
Sí. Vamos a quitarle el plástico.
My Santa Muerte wears a black dress because my prayer is for protection.
Hacia los 4 puntos cardinales, hacia las 4 estaciones del año. Hoy yo te pido, mi Santísima Muerte, que venga el amor, que venga la paz, la prosperidad y la firmeza para tu hijo, para donde quiera que usted se le coloque. Siempre me lo proteja de todo tipo de maleficio, sortilegio, enfermedad, angustia, desesperación. Que venga hacia él el amor, la paz, la tranquilidad, el éxito y la prosperidad a partir de este momento. Que así sea y así será.
The spirit of Santa Muerte is now inside, and now it's up to me to basically care for her, give her what she needs, and to get the blessing and protection from her. I've heard a lot of adherents to Santa Muerte talk about the affection that they have for their skinny ladies, and I never really thought much about it, but I have to be honest with you, it's a little bit weird, but I actually feel this strange affection for her. I don't know how to describe it, but I kind of feel this connection. Now that I've activated my personal Santa Muerte icon, I'm ready to go to Doña Queta's and experience a ceremony that I've only read about in articles and books. Tonight is the year's biggest Santa Muerte celebration. It falls on one of the 3 nights of Dia de los Muertos. And although both traditions revere death, they're not the same thing. Dia de los Muertos focuses on praying for and remembering loved ones who have passed away, while Santa Muerte is a celebration of death itself as a natural part of life. Everybody comes here with their own personal idols. When we bring it out, people will lay them across the way, and everyone just exchanged gifts with each other. Everyone just gives each other little regalitos, candies, cigars, cigarettes. As I walk, people keep spraying me with alcohol, mezcal, some tequila. I got a little bit of whiskey. All of it is to purify Santa Muerte, which activates her power. Otherwise, she's just a statue. It's the spirit of Santa Muerte that actually makes it magical, that gives it its power, its spirituality. Santa Muerte really likes her marijuana. There's like a real sense of camaraderie here, even though there's no specific network that joins these individuals. It's just a sense that on this day, they're all here for the same purpose. Doña Queta. Her Santa Muerte blesses our Santa Muertes. And for this special occasion, Doña Queta has dressed her in a wedding dress. Hola, Doña Queta.
Ay, 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 ay. Qué linda niña, déjame currucar. Yo me siento feliz cuando me currucas. Ay, qué felicidad.
Gracias, muchas gracias.
Gracias, muchas gracias. Ay, me llenaste mi corazón de alegría.
para nuestra niña blanca. En estos momentos, hermanos, todos vamos a elevar nuestras imágenes hacia el cielo, haciéndoselas presente a Dios nuestro Señor y a la Santísima Muerte. Todos le vamos a decir: Santísima Muerte bendita, Santísima Muerte bendita, Ángel de Dios, Dulcísima Muerte, presencia de luz y fuerza, permítenos acogernos a tu manto protector, a tu balanza de justicia y a tu poderoso amor por cada uno de los presentes y por cada imagen que está aquí. Gracias, Santísima Muerte. Vamos a bajar nuestras imágenes, hermanos. En estos momentos, hermanos, todos nos vamos a tomar en las manos, haciendo una cadena de unión y de comunión con la Santísima Muerte.
Cadena de fuerzas.
Recuerden el por qué nos tomamos de las manos, porque todos y cada uno de nosotros somos un eslabón en esta cadena de fuerza que hacemos con la Santísima Muerte. Y le vamos a pedir ayuda y resguardo para todos y para cada uno de nosotros. Pueden hacer su petición en estos momentos. Santísima Muerte, Gran Señora de la Noche, te rogamos y te suplicamos, que nos des fuerza para las jornadas duras, en nuestro trabajo, fortaleza para soportar todos los problemas, que se interpongan en nuestro camino. Amén.
That was amazing and emotional, and I could feel the energy in the crowd coming off of Santa Muerte and the way that everybody was praying together for the same things. It was a rosary like a Catholic Mass, but with all new words that, matter to the kind of people who are here, the disenfranchised, people who are looking for work, people who have been left behind by the state, by the church. It's a new community, a new religion, really, that's forming before our eyes. It's amazing. It's amazing to me. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, so that whosoever believes in him shall never die, but have eternal life. Some would say that religion is all about death, controlling it, escaping it, making sense of it. We can go back to Neanderthal burial sites, and there we can see evidence that they believed that something else happened after this life, that this wasn't it. That sense that some part of us continues ultimately gave birth to myths and rituals, ways of understanding death, of conquering it. All religions have this primal urge to figure out what happens next. Do we simply disappear? Do we get punished or rewarded for our behavior? Is it just a cycle? Do we die and just start all over again? So it makes sense that this obsession with death would ultimately lead to the worship of death. After all, if you worship her, then you never have to fear her, because she comes for all of us. And that the best way to deal with that is to praise her name.
Santa Muerte, Madre nuestra que estás en la tierra.
Madre nuestra que estás en la tierra.
Yo creo en la Santa Muerte.
Yo creo en la Santa Muerte.
Reina Madre del Universo, pongo en ti mi vida entera.
Yo creo en la Santa Muerte porque ella me ha ayudado bastante.
Yo creo en la Santa Muerte porque es muy milagrosa.
Reina y Señora del bien y el mal, consagrando a ti mi muerte.
Yo creo en la Santa Muerte, en la Niña Blanca, porque es la madrina de madrinas.
Bueno, me han involucrado en mi familia y mis amigos.
Poseedora de mi alma, pongo mi vida en tus manos.
Yo creo en la Santa Muerte. Siempre está contigo a pesar de todo.
Yo creo en la Santa Muerte.